The wind came down off the crazy mountains that night like it had teeth, cold enough to cut through my coat, cold enough to make a man wish for a fire and a roof and no company but his own shadow. That's the way I'd lived for near on 20 years. Just me, the stock, and the silence. Silence was easy. It didn't ask questions. It didn't die on you. I'd been gone near 3 days running cattle across the north pasture. My hands were raw, the gelding blown hard from the climb through thawing mud and half-melted snow. All I wanted was coffee and the crackle of the stove. But when the ridge finally dropped to show my homestead, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, smoke curling out the chimney, my chimney. When no fire had been left to burn, I slowed the horse to a trot, senses prickling the way they did back in cavalry days. Strangers meant trouble in these parts, trouble or worse. Then I saw her. At first I thought the wind was playing tricks. A ghost stirred from the drifts and sagebrush. She stood on my porch, small, hunched against the cold, skirts torn and muddied to the knees. Her hat was gone. Dark hair whipped across her pale face. One gloved hand clutched a valise so battered it looked like it had lost a fight with the road. In the other, she held a folded paper like it was scripture. I reined up hard enough. My gelding tossed his head. Evenin'. She called, though her voice cracked on the word. Not fear exhaustion. My rifle slid easy from the scabbard. Habit. You're on private land, miss. She blinked through the snowflakes, chin lifting an inch, stubborn despite the shiver that shook her. Are you Mr. Colt Avery? The name sounded foreign on her lips. I'd near forgotten how it felt to be addressed by it. Who's Eskin? I'm Lila Dawson, she swallowed, voice rough as gravel. Your bride? The wind seemed to stop cold. My heart didn't beat for a second, maybe two. Then it slammed once, hard enough I could hear it over the horse's snort. My what? She fumbled the paper open, hands clumsy with cold. From the Matrimonial Union Agency out of St. Louis. Your letter said you wanted a wife, a helpmate, a chance to start over. I swung down slow, boots crunching frozen earth. Rifle stayed loose in my grip. I didn't write no letter. Her eyes flicked over me, the unshaven face, the worn duster, the gun, and something in them faltered, but didn't break. It's signed right here. Colt Avery. Wah, she held it out. I didn't take it. Didn't need to. One glance told me that scratch of a signature wasn't mine. My gut burned, the way it used to before a fight. Where'd you get this? Stage brought me in from Miles City, she said. But I left Boston months ago. Sold my place at the inn, said goodbye to friends. Her voice thinned. Didn't have much left to lose. The paper flapped in the wind, almost mocking. Some bastard was laughing somewhere, I knew who. Boone Callahan. That meddlesome snake had been poking round here since winter, saying a man shouldn't rot alone. I'd near knocked him flat last time we spoke. Should have you ride that coach out tomorrow, I said, sharper than I meant. Her chin came up, but the color drained from her face. Stage won't be back for weeks. They dropped me at Milestone Station and went on. I cursed low. Snow had started falling thicker, wet flakes plastering her hair. Another hour in the pass would be hell. You can't stay here, I muttered, even as I saw the way she swayed on her feet. She swayed again, then steadied. I don't have anywhere else. That hit, not because of what she said, but how. Flat, simple, like a fact carved in stone. Behind me, my horse stamped and blew steam. The smell of coming snow filled the air. I could ride away, leave her to fend. No law said otherwise. But there's a line a man doesn't cross and still call himself one. Inside, I said finally, for tonight. I kept the rifle in hand until she passed the threshold, then leaned it by the door. The cabin felt smaller with another breathing soul in it. She went straight to the stove like a moth to flame, hands shaking too much to unbutton her coat. I tossed a log on, heat leaping up fast. She flinched at the pop of sap but didn't step back. Sit, I ordered. Instead she stood, dripping onto the floor, eyes skimming the room, the single bed, the boots by the door that had belonged to someone long dead, the portrait face down on the shelf. Her gaze lingered on that a moment, curious but kind. You live alone. Not a question. Yeah. She unpinned her shawl. It fell heavy and wet. Underneath her dress was plain and road-stained. She looked young, but older somehow, edges hardened, but not bitter. I poured coffee, shoved a tin cup her way. She wrapped both hands round it like she might drink the warmth itself. You can have the stove, I said. I'll take the chair. She looked at me then, direct, grateful maybe, but wary too. Thank you, Mr. Avery. Colt, I corrected before I could stop myself. She smiled, just barely. It made something inside me flinch. Been a long time since anyone smiled in this room. I didn't sleep. The chair creaked under me while the storm built outside, and I watched her breathe slow and even curled on a pallet near the fire. She'd pulled her shawl over herself, but it was still. Now and then she coughed, a dry little sound that tugged somewhere I didn't want tugged. I should have been furious. Some meddler had dragged a stranger into my life, into my grief. But anger wouldn't build a roof over her head. Wouldn't change the blizzard I could hear howling against the shutters. Instead, I sat there, thinking on Boone Callahan's smirk. On the words, your bride. Thinking on the way she'd stood straight on my porch, despite cold and shame and nowhere else to go. When morning came, the storm hadn't quit, but the light cut weak and gray through the window. I woke to the scrape of broom bristles. She was sweeping. I pushed upright. What the hell are you doing? Earning my keep, she said over her shoulder. You're not keeping. She didn't stop. Someone tracked half the prairie in last night. Thought I'd better? Something hot rose in me, sharp and confusing. Not anger, not really. I looked away, out the window at the drifted snow. Boots crunched outside. My gut tightened before I saw him. Boone. I stepped to the door and threw it wide. Well now, Boone drawled, hat cocked, grin slick as a snake's. Heard there was a new lady at the Avery place. Came to pay respects. Lila froze behind me. Get off my land, I said, low and flat. Now, Colt, that ain't hospitable. Girl traveled far. You ought to thank me, worlds wide and empty. You're half dead already. His gaze slid past me toward Lila, hungry. I stepped forward just enough he had to lean back. Leave. Boone's grin faltered, but not much. Don't say I didn't try to help, he spat, turned and rode off, snow spraying under his horse's hooves. I shut the door, and for a long minute neither of us spoke. Lila stood with the broom in her hand like it was a weapon. You know him? She asked quietly. Neighbor, I said. Calls himself a friend. She didn't comment. Just went back to sweeping. Though her hands shook a little now, it was near sundown before I let myself breathe easy again. Boone wouldn't push too hard, not yet, but I'd seen his look. Trouble brewing. Lila worked steady all day, feeding hens, chopping a little wood despite hands blistering from the axe. Didn't ask permission, didn't ask for help. That stubborn streak tugged something almost like respect out of me. When she finally sat, flushed from the stove and smelling of wood smoke, I found myself breaking my own rules. You cook? Her eyes flicked up. I can, then make enough for two. Surprise flashed quick in her face, then softened. She moved quiet, efficient. I watched the way she handled my sparse kitchen like she'd done it in stranger places before. We ate in silence. But it wasn't empty. Not yet easy, but not hostile either. Halfway through, she asked, almost shy, Why don't you want a wife? I choked on my coffee. Why'd you come west? Her shoulders twitched, maybe a shrug. Nowhere else to go, then. Doesn't answer my question. I didn't answer. Couldn't, not yet. She let it drop. But something in her eyes said she wouldn't forever. That night I found myself checking the windows. The rifle, the shadows along the tree line, old habits clawing up from deep inside. Somewhere out there, Boone was probably telling someone about the woman alone on my ranch. The kind of talk that brought worse than gossip. And yet, when I looked across the room and saw Lila's head bent over, mending one of my shirts, lamplight catching her hair, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not peace. Not yet. But maybe the shape of it. I told myself it was just the storm, just the quiet, just another soul keeping the dark at bay. But part of me knew better.